Taoiseach, some of us were less than impressed last week with the great fanfare and hype around the so-called deal on the promissory note. And 100,000 people took to the streets at the weekend, clearly not believing that much had changed for them. This morning, Patrick Honohan, the Governor of the Central Bank, reminded us that household financial distress is at extraordinary and unprecedented levels. Yet today we understand that your Minister for Finance will publish a finance bill that is still going to require hundreds of thousands of families to pay a tax on their family home that they simply cannot afford. There will, I understand, be no exemptions for the unemployed, no exemptions for pensioners, no exemptions for the 160,000 or so people in mortgage distress, no exemptions for workers who've had their incomes savaged, like the nurse reported on in the papers today, fully qualified nurse who is unable to pay her bills, or a pensioner in my own constituency who is facing, she tells me, on an income of less than €200 a week, is facing a bill of €800 a year in property tax when those bills drop in March, when those demands drop in March. So, Taoiseach, very simply, if the deal on the promissory note was such a wonderful achievement as you claim, and is, as you claim, going to leave us with €1 billion more in 2014 and €1 billion more in 2015, can you simply announce today that you will abolish the property tax?
Thank you.
That you now have the money, that you will abolish the property tax and not force the unemployed, pensioners, those in mortgage distress, and others who are struggling to pay the bills to pay a tax on their home that they simply cannot afford.
Thank you,
If the deal was a real deal, you can afford that now, Taoiseach, so make that commitment, make that promise, and give a bit of hope and relief to the ordinary people out there.
Taoiseach. Well, sure, since you came in here, you've never been impressed with anything, only the quality of the demonstrations that you can put out on the streets. That's your weekly fix. Weekly fix. I might just say to you, Deputy Barrett, nobody on the government side, in respect of the promissory note agreement with the ECB, pointed out that this was going to be an end to all our difficulties. Everybody said this is a relief to the debt sustainability of our country, which will make Ireland more attractive for investment in here and for the opportunity for those in lending institutions to have access to the markets, to have access to greater credit for lending for business to create jobs. And we never indicated, contrary to what you say, other than this was a major and historic achievement for the country, but we still have a long way to go. Now, the property tax legislation went through the House before Christmas. You do realise it's passed into law. No, the amendments that have been produced today by the Minister for Finance will be available for you at 1:30, and all of the amendments are concessions in respect of the property tax. And the good lady that you mentioned there will be able to defer her property charge based on the income that you mentioned. So this is a case of very clear guidelines being laid out here, very clear opportunities, changes in respect of social housing, the issue of charitable organisations owning property, and those hard-pressed householders who purchased homes that were afflicted by pyrite. These are changes that the Minister has recognised need to be made in order to have this as fair as possible. You're also aware that the vast majority of the property tax collected will be spent in local areas for local services for local people. And in that sense, the the bill being made available to you today of amendments at half-one are nothing, only exemptions and concessions that the Minister for Finance has recognised are necessary to implement.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Boyle, 1 minute, thank you.
So, the truth about the deal becomes clear. It isn't going to make a whit of difference to the people in this country who are being hammered with cuts and who you now are planning to impose hundreds of euros a year and a further burden on them with your property charges. I know damn well, Taoiseach, that the finance bill was passed through, which is going to impose this burden at the end of last year. But given that you claim we have saved ourselves billions of euros, why are there not going to be further exemptions announced by your Minister for Finance today to take pensioners out of the property tax net, to take those on disability allowances, those who have lost their jobs, those whose incomes have been savaged, like nurses, fully qualified nurses who can't pay their bills? Why is there no exemptions for them? Why is there no relief for them? Is that the truth about the deal last week and about the so-called exemptions today, that there is nothing? There is nothing for the people who are being hammered. Is that the best you can do, Taoiseach?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, first thing I want to say to Deputy Boyd Barrett again is that the introduction of the property tax is something that is now passed into law. It's an alternative to increases in income tax, which are a tax on jobs, as you know, which you tend to spout about on a regular basis in here.
Sorry, hold a second.
As you know, the bill of amendments being published at half-one contains quite a number of concessions. There are exemptions, as you know, for newly constructed but unsold residential property, and they correspond to exemptions from the household charge, where ownership is vested in a public body, where a principal private residence is unoccupied by reason of long-term mental or physical infirmity, mobile home, vehicle or vessels, property fully subject to commercial rates, and so on. And as I said, the issue of the pyrite-afflicted homes is a concession that I'm sure that you welcome, even in your continued misery that you put out here every week. The fact of the matter is that, as the Minister pointed out, there will be a saving to the taxpayer of €1 billion in respect of the promissory note and a requirement to borrow €20 billion less over the next 10 years. That's been reflected in some recognition by rating agencies of the status of the country. It's also being reflected in the international assessment of Ireland as being a very ideal location to invest in, with job opportunities resulting from that. And I say to you again, Deputy Boyd Barrett, the vast majority of the property tax being collected would be spent in local areas for local services, for local people, so that they will see where their contributions actually go. This is not easy.
Thank you.
Believe you me, we all know that there are very many thousands of people challenged in our country. But the situation this week is better than it was last week because of the agreement to the promissory note deal. If we hadn't arrived at that position, you'd be the first person up spouting about the 3.1 billion that's to be borrowed every March, which was the situation left behind by the party sitting in front of you.
Thank you.